teachers generally don't have much formal training on how to support neurodivergent students. And we also don't really have the supports in place in schools for the adults who are neurodivergent themselves. And while awareness is the first step in supporting everyone, we really need to do more. So today I'm speaking with ADHD academic and parenting coach Leslie Josel, who is the founder of Order Out of Chaos. And their mission is to help parents and educators guide their students to success, both in learning and in life. And Leslie and I talked about her own experiences when her son was first diagnosed with ADHD in a time where there was really limited understanding and resources available to families like hers. She shares how she made it her mission to untangle her son's world and has been dedicated to defining systems and structures that would help other families do the same for the last 19 years. I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. And after this episode, be sure to check out Break Time, which is the monthly Empowered Educator subscription that gives you access to an incredible video library of self-regulation strategies, as well as monthly group coaching calls with me. So head on over to empowerededucator.com/resources. Remember all the passion and vision you had when you first went into teaching? Feeling like building young minds and creating community through your work would make a lasting impact on this world? Well, those days may feel like they're behind you now because you're exhausted, stressed, and overwhelmed and frustrated, but I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be like this. In fact, the love of teaching never really went away, but it absolutely needs transformation. Welcome to the Take Notes podcast. I'm Jen Rafferty, former music teacher, mom of two, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, and I'm here to light the way for you. In order to create a generational change for our kids, we need to shift the paradigm away from the perpetual stress and overwhelm and into a life of joy and fulfillment. This is Education 2.0, where you become the priority, shift how you live your life, and how you show up both at work and at home. So take a sip of steamy morning coffee and grab your notebook. It's time to take notes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Take Notes. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today because, first of all, the content is going to be absolutely amazing. This conversation is so important. But even beyond that, when I first got to know Leslie, it ended up we had a lot in common. We grew up in Long Island. We both lived in Ithaca, and we both have this incredible Los Angeles connection. So crazy, right? First of all, I'm just thrilled that you're here. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. It was like instant,
Kismet.
like magic. Kismet.
Yeah, it really was. It was just meant to be. So Leslie is an ADHD academic and parenting coach and founder of Order Out of Chaos, which is a virtual company whose mission is to help parents guide their students to success in learning and in life. When her son was first diagnosed with ADHD is how this all started. She is the creator of the award-winning academic planner, a tool for time management, which helps students develop time management skills, and the award-winning author of 3 books, including the recently published How to Do It Now, because it's not going to go away, an expert guide to getting stuff done. And she is the weekly writer of Dear ADHD Family Coach column for ADDitude magazine, the premier magazine for adults and children with ADHD, and speaks to audiences all over the world. Leslie, hello.
Hi. When I listen to that, sometimes I'm like, wow, what is that? That's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Bring it in. It's great. And I'm so glad that you wanted to spend your time with us today, because this is something that continues to be asked of me. Jen, can you talk more about ADHD? Can you talk more about adults with ADHD? And I was really excited when our paths crossed and were able to have this conversation. I'd love for you to tell and share your story about how you got here. What is the origin story?
So I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version because we only have a certain amount of time. And what I'm going to invite is that if anyone is very curious about it, and I invite them to go to our website where they can read the story its entirety. But if you go to the website, it says in big letters, it all started with my son. And I feel like that actually captures a lot of people's attention, because I think what I went through is what a lot of people have gone through in all of the years that we've been in existence. So I started my company 19 years ago. Fun fact, today is our 19th anniversary. But thank you. But what I want people to go back to 2004. The internet wasn't as massive as it is. There weren't podcasts. There weren't conferences. There weren't telesummits. There wasn't really even people talking about ADHD in a very user-friendly way. There was really very little information out there. My son was newly diagnosed at the time. He was 4. And I really had to rely on my guts and my instincts to, I always say, untangle his world. That is the word I use. And I think that's a really good visual, both at home and at school. Now, what I did back then was really, some people even said, wow, that was like incredible or revolutionary or out of the box thinking. Maybe not so much now, because we know so much and understand how to help students and adults in an ADHD world. But back then, doing what I did, like taking doors off closets so he could see what was behind them, because what you don't see doesn't exist. Taking the dresser out of his room and lining clear bins with pictures of what went in there and simplifying the steps of finding clothes and getting undressed. I labeled everything that was hidden in our house blue, because blue was very soothing for him. And we recognized color before we recognized words. So as you know, now people be like, yeah, okay, I get it. But go back 19 years ago, it was pretty radical. I want to say that, not that I'm so fabulous, but I spent a lot of time trying to keep it clean, figuring this out. True story. A friend of mine who was a therapist saw what I did and said, I have a family of 4 that I work with, 4 boys under the age of 10, all with ADHD. And I was working at the time. I didn't do this. And she said, you've got to help me out. And I spent 8 hours out of the goodness of my heart with this family, helping them redo everything. Within 2 weeks, I got 4 phone calls. I saw what you did at Lisa's house. Can you come to mine? I turned to my husband, who has ADHD, and there's a reason. I said, because I'm such a Virgo, I'm such a type A, like everything has to be an ordination. I'm like, but I don't do this for a living. And he just kind of went, you do now. And literally, I was working 4 days a week. So I was doing this on Fridays and Saturdays, going house to house, door to door, family, working with them to define systems and structures that would help them. Within a month, I quit my job. 19 years later, we are an online global virtual company. We have about 17 countries, over 100,000 parents, teachers, related professionals, and students who come to us for products, programs, workshops, webinars, coaching, and you read the rest. And it has been a wild ride, but what I still realize 19 years later, with the internet at our fingertips, with more information coming our way, people are still looking for connection and answers and figuring it out. What I find in our community is they want the how. We all know the why, but they really want the how. So that's kind of what we bring to the table at OOC is, yes, we obviously have to do the why, but we are really bringing them concrete things that they can really wrap their brains around in a very user-friendly way. And I think the fact that I bring to the table, I always say I wear 3 hats. Obviously, I wear a professional hat, but I wear a parenting hat. And I think that's really, there were many nights when I would stand on a stage at a local high school and go, I just left my son lying on the floor screaming. I get you. Like, I live you, right? I mean, it's not that way anymore, but I wear the parenting hat, I wear the professional hat, but I also wear the student hat. And I spend all my days with kids. And I feel that we bring a very unique sensibility to what we do that others don't. Meaning that and I'm not bad-mouthing. I love my colleagues. We all work together on a lot of things, but I think that's what makes us unique.
Absolutely. Having that lived experience is everything, because I think exactly what you said, people come looking for connection and community, and they find that with people who have those shared lived experiences. That is the thing that makes you, you. And yay, I want to celebrate for a second this 19-year anniversary, because that's huge and speaks really volumes as to the need for what you're providing. And there are some things that you said that I want to go back to. And the first thing that comes to mind is the concrete steps that you just laid out. And you're like, yeah, I get this now. It's 2022. I got this. Many of us don't. And I want to just put that perspective out there. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, because as a teacher in the classroom, we don't have formal training on a lot of this, right? We get an IEP or we get the 504, and then it's okay, go.
And you're like, well, what does that mean?
Right. Many of us are missing that how. And I think that's part of what gets so frustrating sometimes is because when you're in the class of 20, 25, sometimes 30, and you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even more sometimes kids who are dealing with a variety of things in their life to just function throughout the day and do well, these concrete things that you're saying, I mean, I've been teaching for 15 years and I was super creative about how I did it, but I never even thought about those things. So can you talk more about that stuff? That's so valuable here.
It's interesting because I do so much work in the schools and I say this and it's like funny, you're a teacher and it's a very interesting spot to be in when you are not a teacher by training, but you're an ADHD expert or you're an academic life coach. And then you're asked to come into a school and tell teachers how to teach. It's a slippery slope because I would never want to tell a teacher how to teach because I think what you do is like hero's work and never more than in the last few years. And to back that up, we actually had so we are celebrating our 10th plan anniversary. You mentioned that we have academic planners. And what we did this year in honor of that is we gave a $5,000 grant to a school in our community, the Order Out of Chaos community. That was not only doing heroes work for their children or their students that were neurodiverse, but also all their students. So I love schools and I love teachers, but I'm humbled to be told, like when I tell a teacher, here's what I tell teachers, and I'm going to share something with everyone that I probably shouldn't yet. But I know you said to me, like, I'm going to ask you a question and what's your like vision for education? And my vision for education is actually what I work on now, day in and day out when I'm asked, and it's called universal learning. And I think that is exactly what you're talking about. So we all know what universal design is. Universal design is when they realized that there was a population of those that had physical impairments that needed curb cuts, that needed access into buildings that would make it easier for them, right? And it was specifically done for those that had physical impairments. But what they realized was all of us, whether you had a physical impairment or were completely fine, benefited from it. So if I was a parent with a stroller or I was walking down a busy street with luggage to go somewhere, those curb cuts benefited everybody, or those, the big print on the screens. We all need them, not just those that might have visual impairment. So I talk about universal learning as very similar. What we are trying to teach teachers and schools is that all the methodologies that we talk about for those that are neurodiverse are actually beneficial to everybody. So it shouldn't be that this is like, oh, how do I work with those with executive dysfunction, ADHD? That really should not be the conversation. The conversation really should be, how am I putting in practices and multimodal learning that's going to benefit all of my kids in the classroom? So how am I making time visible? So all of my kids, if they're time blind, or maybe they're anxious, or maybe how can I make that visible? How can I get my students to see time so they can learn to manage it? How can I modulate the effort level of my teaching? So those kids that struggle with effort, sustaining effort, how can I modulate my teaching so I can sustain their effort level throughout the entire class period? That's not just for someone who has executive functioning impairment. That's for all. Think about it. Can a 13-year-old really sustain 45 minutes of a lecture? I mean, I can give you an example of what we talk about with teachers is we say, you actually do it, but you don't even realize that you're doing it in a good way or why you're doing it. So when your student walks in the classroom, sometimes out on like the credenza is they do now, right? We all know what a do now is. The do now, drop your homework in the red bin, pick up your homework for tomorrow night in the white bin. You come and you sit down. You're asked to sit and do some work, but it's low level effort. Your student who might have executive dysfunction or cannot sustain effort does not have to be listening, doesn't have to be processing, doesn't have to be understanding, doesn't have to have his working memory doesn't have to be on fire. It's low effort. Basically, it's looking around the room and going, okay, if Michael's doing this now, I should be doing this now. So it's low level. You're warming the brain up. Then teacher might say, okay, everyone, time, put it away. Time for lecture. Now, all of a sudden, your student has to go on high alert, right? Effort level up, process, understand. Working memory is like snapping at all cylinders. All of that is happening for about 20 minutes. But then when sometimes a teacher will say, okay, great. Now what you can all do is finish questions 1 and 2 by yourself, maybe work with your partner. And again, the effort level goes back. What we don't realize is when we modulate like that, you're actually preserving that student's brain. If we have to have that student on high alert for 45 minutes, put a fork in them, they're done. So we actually teach teachers this kind of method of teaching because that actually, now imagine a student has that for 8 hours. Imagine a student that has effort challenges. Sometimes if the perception might be lazy, we always say the perception of lazy is really a hard time sustaining effort. When a kid comes to me and says, my teachers think I'm lazy or my parents think I'm lazy, I always say, you go back and you tell them you just have a hard time sustaining effort. Those are some of the very practical things that I bring to the table when I'm asked to work with teachers to really explain to them what a child who has executive dysfunction looks like. But yet that teaching methodology that I just did for you, that benefits every kid in a classroom.
Right. That's just good teaching.
It's just good teaching. It's understanding that no one stand up, sit down. I have teachers who stay in the middle of class. They make everybody stand up and move one desk over because we know that movement helps to lay down learning.
Yes. And a lot of this, like you said, many teachers do this already, but without maybe a full understanding as to why.
Exactly. It's really important. And so all of a sudden, I'll be working with teachers and they'll go, oh my gosh, they do that. And I'm like, that's amazing. They're like, but I never knew why I was doing that, or even more importantly, what the benefit of it was. Right. So I really spent a lot of time also working with teachers, helping them understand what executive functioning is, but not just executive functioning, it's what executive age is.
I'll just pause for a second. In tenet 3 of Empowered Educator, it's all about brains. Teachers are brain changers, but again, don't have very much training as to how the brain functions, what executive function even is, how you yourself can go about doing this. So yes,
okay,
it is.
So I'm going to give you what normally takes me 4 hours. I'm going to do it in 2 minutes. Here we go. Everyone will describe executive functioning differently. I like 6 pillars because I think 6 pillars are manageable. And remember, I'm also speaking to students all day long and parents. So I have to speak a language that's incredibly user-friendly. How I describe executive functions is by 2 words, purposeful actions. It's a really good way of thinking about it. Before we do that, what people don't realize is that executive functioning and ADHD are not one and the same. Here's a fun fact. If you have anyone in your classroom who has been diagnosed with ADHD, they will automatically have executive dysfunction. They go hand in hand because ADHD is an executive function disorder. It is not about focus or hyperactivity. That is just too simple. It is all about self-regulation, right? It's about doing the right thing at the right time, purposeful actions. I want you all to remember that. I think it is such a good way of thinking about it. But here's the difference. You could have a child in your classroom who has executive dysfunction, but not be diagnosed with ADHD. It does not go that way, which is why we really spend more time talking about executive functioning than we do ADHD, because executive functioning tells the story. It's super granular. It's super day-to-day. It's super brain specific. So your executive functions I break them down into 6 pillars. So the first one is activation. And that actually is organizing and time management together. And yes, a lot of people will go, but how is time management and organizing in the same category? And what I'll tell you is if you are time blind or don't know where you sit in time, that is actually a disorganization of the brain. Disorganization doesn't necessarily have to be space and stuff. And that's the aha moment. Okay. Number 2 is focus. I think we pretty much understand that one. Distractibility, focus. Number 3 is effort level. Okay. And that's different than focus. Effort level is being up here all the time, trying to, and just not. I always say that's also where overwhelm lives. That's where the overwhelm lives. And I know all of you have overwhelmed kids in your classroom.
Where are overwhelmed?
I just did a webinar, I kid you not, on the overwhelmed student. We call them the TOO student. Too much, too big, too hard, too loud. We had over 5,000 people come to that webinar because this is the topic right now that everybody is talking about is overwhelm.
Yes, sure is.
Okay. Number 4 is mood regulation. I'm going to get back to that one in a minute. Number 5 is working memory. Working memory is not short term. It's not like what you ate for breakfast. It's not long term. I went with grandma for her 80th to Disney. This is how I describe working memory. And all you teachers out there are going to go, oh my God, it's your kid at 8:00 in the morning going, I'm good. I got it. I'm all right. At that moment and in that time, your student is. But let's fast forward to 8:00 at night when your student opens, and I'm not picking on you math teachers, math, and goes, I never learned this. I got no idea what that is. That's working memory. Did he hear you? Yes. But did he remember? No. Working memory is remembering to remember. It's information has to sticky glue it to your brain and then be able to take it out when you need. It's a 2-lane highway.
Yes.
Working memory. I mean, I'm doing this in like record time.
It's so impressed.
Then the last one is what you would all know as impulsivity. I hate that word. So I describe it as self-leadership. I love that.
So much more empowering.
Way more empowering. Now, mood regulation, because this is not a science class, but mood regulation is all about, it's the emotion side of the brain. It's the limbic system. And what you have to understand about the right brain and the left brain is all the logic and linear thinking and reasoning and rational. The right brain is all like your emotion and all of that. So if that limbic system, which holds all that, is in play, reasoning things away, rationalizing things away will never work. You have to connect to that right brain first to bring that limbic system down. It's like healing a balloon. You have to fizzle it out and then reconnect. We always say you've got to connect to the right and then direct back to the left. You cannot rationalize or reason it away. But what that might look like in a classroom is a quiet kid. Doesn't always mean an explosive kid. It's a frustrated kid. It's an anxious kid. It's a quiet kid.
Yeah, they all present in so many
very differently.
Sure. And, and I'm thinking about this too, from the lens of the adults in the room who are also maybe reflecting on their own behaviors and think, wow, like this stuff regulates, it resonates with me, right? The self-regulation resonates with me. This effort level resonates. And I want to share something that I was really looking forward to asking you. One of the teachers who work with me, an empowered educator, asked a question, and I'm going to pass it to you. She says, I'm newly ADHD diagnosed in my late 40s, and now all my life makes sense.
I hear that all the time in my column.
She said, I notice a lot of overlap between burnout symptoms and ADHD and what kind of things you have to help neurodivergent folks. And I thought with all these 6 pillars that you're telling me about, I feel like this ties in tremendously because a lot of that overwhelm, like you were just describing, that's sometimes the first symptom we feel of burnout. But what kind of things do you, like you said, if we're talking about universal learning, universal design, universal language, just about how it is to be a human being in this world, all of this is relevant to everybody.
This is my thing. I always say this. I love teachers, and I am very blessed that I get to travel the world. I've spoken to teachers in Kuwait, in Canada, in Brazil. I am very lucky. And actually, this webinar was free, but our webinars are free for teachers. We just feel, why not? Because you guys are doing literally heroes work. Trust me, I never saw it more than during the pandemic because I was on the other side of it. And I was like, whatever, we were giving webinars just for teachers, anything, all of our resources. I couldn't give hard products, but we were giving anything we could because it was just crazy. Anyway, I just want to know that.
Yes.
But a lot of it is you understanding what is tapping into that overwhelm. So for some of my adults, they will come to me and say decision-making. So it's interesting. I feel like decision-making is like Cinderella, like she's the stepsister in the back. You never see her, you never talk about her. But all of a sudden, we started talking about decision-making in one of our webinars, and it like exploded. Believe it or not, that's something you can do in the classroom, even for your kids or even for yourself. So for my adult clients who go, I am so overwhelmed by decision-making, decision fatigue is very real. I am not neurodiverse. I make about 1,000 decisions. So I work very long days. So I get it. By the time I walk out my door, my husband benignly goes, what do you want for dinner? I'm like, I can't, I'm not. So I can imagine. So what has worked, believe it or not, with my adults is thinning out their columns is what I call it. Cubby sizing. We talk a lot in our work about shelves and cubbies. And teachers use that analogy because shelves are unwieldy. They're cluttered. You can't see beginning, middle, and end. Shelves have parameters. They have spaces on them. So limiting your choices. So what does that look like for my adult clients? What it looks like is I get 2 magazines, not 10. I food shop in 2 places, not 5. I make 5 meals and that's it. Rituals and routines are really, really important for those that are particularly adults who are neurodiverse because it takes decision making out of things. And therefore it calms the brain and it saves the brain for what it really needs to be doing, which is preparing plans and grading papers, right? So all of those decisions that you can narrow down and not have. If you've ever heard Peter Shankman, I don't know if anyone knows who he is. He's this very famous entrepreneur, has an ADHD podcast. And I was on it and we talked about this. And he's like, Leslie, that's actually brilliant. I only work out on Peloton. I don't go to 5 different exercises. Now I'm talking about adults now. I only read 1 newspaper. I only get 2 magazines. I only make 6 meals, like in my rotation. I eat the same breakfast every day. We know there are geniuses who wore the same turtleneck every day or ate the same thing every day. They actually were neurodiverse or are neurodiverse, but that's how they saved their brain.
That's a huge part of all of this.
It's huge. We don't talk about decision-making, but it's huge.
Right. And it's finding your strengths. And, when we talk a lot about the accommodations that we need to make as adults or accommodations we need to make as kids, there's a lot of deficit thinking. But here, the way that you're explaining it is you are taking something that can be completely empowering for an incredible purpose, for sustaining throughout the day, for doing amazing things, for having the impact that you want to make with the students and the communities you serve. Something
Exactly.
like this, one change to make those decisions like you just described.
We're basically trimming fat. We're trimming fat. And what I like about this, and we do a lot of it in our work, is that it's sustainable because we're not asking you to make radical decisions. We're not asking you to make radical changes. We're not saying eliminate completely. It's going through your categories and saying, and listen, again, and this is very meta, but it's not just for those that are neurodiverse. We are a society of information that is coming out of who are not neurodiverse, feel so sensory overloaded in my life right now because just there's so much coming at me that I've even done this because I just can't sustain that. I can't sustain that effort of having to make 1,000 of where am I getting my information from? Where am I shopping? Where am I doing this from? I know that's not because we fly a lot back and forth, as you know, but just making things smaller. And so I have less decisions to make, have freed up my brain and my clients' brains to be able to use that energy for what they really need to be using it for, whether it's parenting your child, teaching, creating plans, whatever it is.
That's life-changing.
And it's sustainable and you can do it because it's not radical.
These changes have to be that way because otherwise that's where the self-sabotage comes in because we do everything all at once and then we can't do anything.
And the other thing I'm going to say too, it's not directly to teaching, but your environment is so important to the overwhelm of your brain. And we don't talk about environment either. So I understand that when you walk into your classroom, that's kind of fed for you. But whatever you can do within your classroom environment we talk a lot about, it's interesting because when I walk into a school to teach teachers, I'm helping them understand their students. But ultimately what happens is the conversation turns to them. And I get that, right? I'm stuck in this classroom all day. I have parameters that I can't change. Fine. What can we change? Can you bring in things that change the environment for you? So like teachers will say that they do 2 things. They make sure their environment as best they can really helps to engage their brain and soothe it. So it might be, you can't see, it might be aromatherapy. It might be a diffuser going all day in the classroom because the scent, I'm a scent girl. There is a scent in my house all day, every day. I work from home unless I'm traveling. So if it's not aromatherapy, it's a candle. It's not just because it's fun. It really helps to my brain. So I never thought of that. Maybe it's a cushion on your chair that really helps. Maybe it's fun colored paper and pencils that speak to you. I know these sound trite, but they're really not. Anything that you can do in your environment, maybe it's flowers, fresh flowers every Monday morning to help you, because environment is actually the number one thing we have to help us to motivate and feel less overwhelmed. So that's number one. And number two, the other thing we talk a lot about is what I call a work ritual. And I talk about this with adults as well as my students. So what you have to know about the brain is stone cold. You would never go and play the big soccer game, or you would never go and be in the, on the big theater show. I don't know if I said that right. You know what I'm talking about, right? Without warming up first. You warm up your muscles, whether it's your voice muscle to get on the show, your body, the soccer, whatever. Working requires muscle. Your brain is a muscle. So when you walk into a room and you start and you are stone cold, it is really, really, you are putting so much effort of your own to get to where you need to be to teach, neurodiverse or not, meaning as the teacher. So what we want is a work ritual in place. What do you do every morning to warm up your brain, to get it ready to do the work you need to do? And I say that to my students too. What's your work ritual? And everyone has their own. Some people have, some people don't. You're like, I don't know, I just sit down and start. And I'm like, do you know what you're up against when you do that? Maybe it is lighting a candle. Maybe it's coffee. Maybe it's a walk around the block. Maybe it's conversation with your mother. Some people say, absolutely not. That's not what I need. But what is your work ritual that's going to open up the brain? Because the brain has to warm up. And when we see people doing that, adults in particular, they find themselves less overwhelmed and able to give more and receive.
Yes. That's the whole thing with the work that I do. It's priming yourself as the adult in the room. So you are regulated. So you are calm. So you are centered. So you can give and receive, because otherwise we're not able to have the impact.
Absolutely. 100%. So what are you doing? What are you doing to do that? Listen, I coach all day Mondays and I start very early. I get up very early on Monday and I have a ritual that I do before I sit down at this desk so that when I see my students across from me, they have 100% of my attention. Now, granted, by the end of it, I'm exhausted at the end of the day because it's a lot of, but I make sure that I've had coffee, because for me, if I do a small, not a big workout, but I have to stretch my body because I'm sitting all day. You can't see it. I have a candle that is lit. I have my books ready to go. Not only is my phone off, it is nowhere even near me. That's research proven that even when you have a phone near you that's off, your cognitive ability plummets. In other words, it makes you stupid. I hate that word. I'm just telling you what they say. So now I'm sitting here and literally I am ready to receive. I have warmed up my brain and I've gotten ready to give what I need to give. And I'm not as exhausted because I'm not coming in oh my God, you know what I'm saying? Where's my pen? I don't have the books for each, I'm calm, I'm centered, and I'm ready to go.
That's so important. And that morning time, it can be sacred. I remember when I'd get up, I'd press snooze a couple of times, hop in the shower, get the kids ready, forget the instrument in the house, come back running to get the band instrument, go back, get the red light and barely get to work in time. And then by the time you're there, you're already frazzled, you're fried.
But here's the other thing. For those of you that are going to say to me, this is something we work on with students a lot. We have a lot of kids who come home from school. Follow me along. Follow the bouncing ball. I promise I have a point.
I'm totally with you. Let's go.
I wrote a whole book about students and procrastination. We called it Tales from the Trenches because we went back and talked to as many kids as we could find that I had coached. So it's not only my stories, it's their stories. And one of the things that was resounding to my kids, but when I say my kids, you know what I mean, was we had to eliminate the barrier to entries. And I talk about barriers to entry in everything I do. And it seeps all the way back to when I started my company, when I took the doors off the closet or I took the dresser out. That was a barrier to entry to my son. So what was a barrier to my entry for my students when they came home, whether it was in high school or college, to getting work done? It was too overwhelming. So what we do is we separate the setup from the task, because the setup is a visual reminder of what we have to do. And it eases us. It's almost like the bridge to getting it done. And I noticed that with a lot of my teachers, they actually globbed onto that idea for themselves. And what did that look like? So for a student coming home, let's say in high school, maybe he sits at the dining room table, maybe it's his room, whatever it is. That's a different podcast for a different day. He lays everything out. He's got his books out. He might make popcorn and put that next to it. He's got all what he needs, but he doesn't do anything. So that's what I ask of them. I know you need time, but at least get set up. Now you can go off and do what you need, fill your tank. But what happens now when they come back, they're not up against the, what do I have to do? Where if they can ease into it. It's a visual cue and they've built the bridge. And it really helps the procrastination thing. My college students will do it. They even leave like tabs up. So I have kids that the night before will leave all their tabs open. So the next day when they wake up, it's right there. A lot of my teachers do that the night before they leave their classrooms. Everything is out and ready. It's almost as if the minute they walk into there. So if you're not a morning person, you can actually do your work ritual the night before, to the point where I have what goes in. I put my candle and the match right next to thing. I have my papers ready to go. So like when I walk in, my planner is open. Things are already out on the desk. So that when I walk in, all of those visual cues help me ease into the day like this. I don't have to think. I don't have to exercise my brain. It's kind of done for me. So there's that too. Right. So I want everyone to think of it in those ways as well. It doesn't always have to be like if you're sitting and going, there's no way I can get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do all that. You don't have to. And what it does is, again, it takes that decision making out of the equation. I don't need to be asking, what do I need to be doing right now?
Right. And then you get overwhelmed in that and then you don't end up doing anything.
Anything. Right. Exactly.
We've all been there. And, again, really looking inwards, because when we look inwards, not only are we able to show up better, but we're setting these examples for our kids who are watching us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in some ways also, we talk a lot in the school with teachers about visual cues. Like, are you still hanging analog clocks in the classroom? I'm sorry, I am the queen of analogs. Your students need to see time move to really know where they sit in the relation to the day. And digital doesn't cut it. Digital only gives you one time, and that's the present. And I'm a time management expert. That's really my wheelhouse. And what I explain to teachers too is the more you can make time visible or visual, the less pressure is off you. And the other thing you're doing is strengthening their brain. Like, we tend to be, as coaches and teachers, we tend to be problem solvers. We tend to be fixers. We tend to answer questions, even when none are asked. The big thing, I ask teachers this all the time. I'm like, do you answer questions when none are asked? And they're like, oh, well, what the heck do you mean by that? Kid goes to you, because you can have little kids. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I don't understand. And we go off and we explain or answer. And I go, but did they ask you anything? No. So why are you answering them? If you truly want to strengthen your student's brain, I always say you don't need to know the answer, but they have to be able to ask the question. And I don't know is not a question. I don't know is a weak executive functioning brain. And that's okay. Your job as the teacher is to work it out, is to give them 2-pound dumbbells, because the brain is a muscle. And to do that is to ask them a question back. So if you have a kid that goes to you and says, I don't understand, or I don't know, I don't understand, right? Can you tell me what you do know? It's a great question.
That is a great question.
Can you tell me what you do know? Now, you might have to lead them if they're younger. And when I teach teachers that, they're like, oh my God, I love that. Because my first response is to go, okay, because we do that. That's a good thing. We're fixers and helpers and Virgos, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I get it. But I have really, in my own coaching, had to learn how to shut up. And I'm not telling you to shut up, but to ask questions back. So if someone comes to me and says, I don't know, I'm like, is there something you need? Is there something you need from me? What is it that you're trying to ask me?
That opens a door.
Because we want them to ask the question. We don't want them just to blurt out, I don't get it. Because when they're doing, I don't get it, they're lifting a 2-pound weight. And we want to get their brains to 3 pounds. Meaning we want to get them so that their brain can lift. And doing that is asking them to formulate the question. So that's a lot of what I teach with teachers is the right kind of questions to go back and ask your students. Where have you seen this before? What does this look similar to? What do you think you need to do to get started? Because sometimes your kid is so overwhelmed by everything. We want to bring it here. What's the first thing you might need to do? I mean, I could go on, and I know we have limited time. Asking questions is probably if I had to come up with one thing that is universal learning, so you're not going to ask me that question because I'm going to keep saying it. Asking your students questions is empowering. It's funny, like we talk about kids coming and saying the word problem. I always say, I love the word problem. I start every session with my students going, tell me about a problem you solved. I think it needs a makeover. I think it needs a rebranding. Problems are not horrible. They're not, but we need to cast them in a way that shows students that they can problem solve, that they have that skill, that problem solving is healthy and smart and a good thing. That's kind of how, I don't know if this is making a lot of sense. But
it is totally on point. I could talk about brains all day with you. I would love to.
Right. It's all about the brain. And
all about the brain.
It's a lot of teaching teachers almost. I learned from teachers how to teach. And sometimes what a teacher will tell me is, you're teaching me how to coach.
Yes. And I just have this visual of just like all of these bodybuilder brains.
So what we do, we have this cute little brain. He's going like this with, we have like a graphic with him. He's doing dumbbells. Yes. And we show it to students, parents, teachers, and like, it's a great visual. I'm like, that's what I tell parents all the time. How do you strengthen your child's executive functioning brain? And it's by asking them questions, because that whole, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I don't know, are not questions.
Yeah, they're not. So juicy. So I know that we kind of touched a little bit on this, but I would love to ask you your dream, Leslie, for the future of education. What do you want? What's your dream?
My dream is that this whole thing about universal learning is not even universal learning, that it's just something that we are putting into the schools for all students, because I really firmly believe that what we are doing are working to do for those that are either neurodiverse or attention deficits or learning challenges really benefits all students. The other thing I envision, and I'm seeing it, are classrooms that are multimodal. Because we didn't really talk about movement. And I talk to kids. To me, a movement is like a smoothie. It is just filled with all the good stuff. It helps distractibility. Movement helps to lay down learning. Movement helps us to stay focused and engaged. So I close my eyes and see, like, even for older students, and is classrooms that are not like desk and teacher, but all different multimodals way of kids really like almost engineering their own path of learning.
Yes. And it is moving in that direction slowly.
It is moving.
Yeah, it's moving. And, because of people like you and work like what I do, we're kind of, this is how we move the ticker forward a little bit at a time and having these conversations in this kind of a forum. So thank you so much. And how do people get to know more about you and work with you?
Oh, okay. That's easy. We try to make it super easy. So the name of my company is Order Out of Chaos. Our website is orderoochaos.com. And if you go there, from there, you can go everywhere. Videos, podcasts, articles, books, products, webinar, like whatever you need. Social, if you like your stuff in social bites, but everything, just go to that website and it will take you to anything and everything you need.
It is quite comprehensive. I've been there. Yes.
We've updated it. Obviously, it doesn't look like what it looked like 15 years ago, but we always say our website is the hardest working member of our team.
Yes, it sure is. That's how it's supposed to be, right? The website is fantastic, and there is an incredible amount of resources there. Yeah, so head over there. I too got lost in it for a while, and the best possible way, because one thing led to another thing. And so what you're doing is fantastic. And I just so appreciate your time and sharing your talents with me and the Take Notes audience today.
I love what you are doing. I don't think there's many of you out there. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, that is just cool and unique and very needed. And so I think what you are doing is amazing. Anything that can support teachers in their own way it should be required.
It is a necessity, not a luxury. And I fully receive that. So thank you so much, Leslie.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And thank you everyone for listening today. Yes. And if you loved today's episode, make sure you write a great review, and we'll see you next time on Take Notes.
Incredible, right? Together, we can revolutionize the face of education. It's all possible, and it's all here for you right now. Let's keep the conversation going at Empowered Educator Faculty Room on Facebook.